And welcome everyone. Glad to be here. I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to share with you, as Man says, we have a bit of a demo. So I'll share the demo with you. But before that, I want to set the stage. Those of you out in the audience who live this on a daily basis know this pain squarely. But let's jump in, set the backdrop. We'll go to the demo and we'll talk a bit about the technology and geek out a bit. So making apps enterprise ready is not easy. Today, if you're going to release a mobile application in an organization, in a digital workplace, you have to contend with a lot of things. Probably one of the major challenges that you have to contend with is how the app is built and how the service that you intend to integrate into that application is built. These two things typically don't talk out of the box. So if you're a classic organization, you care about data leakage and data loss, you care about user privacy, you care about data protection, you care about your perimeter and security, you care about a lot of things. In order to achieve these with mobile applications, you have to add services to the applications you bring to your digital workers. So in some cases, as an organization, you've built these applications, and in other cases, you're bringing applications in from third parties. Apps come in all shapes and sizes. So some are built natively in Xcode and Android Studio. Others are built in more modern mobile application development frameworks, hybrid environments like React Native and Cordova, etc. A lot of them come with sort of drag and drop type environments like Coney or Xamarin and others. But all of these apps come and to your digital workplace. In some cases, they're sanctioned by you. In other cases, they're brought by your users. And in order to make them ready for your organization, you've got to add services to them. In a lot of cases, it's mobility, identity, security are the classic three. And there's a myriad of vendors offering all kinds of services to be added to those. Now, if you're the developer, you've got to bring these into the app. And if you're not the developer, you typically have to ask the ISV to do this work, all of which poses a challenge. What we see out in the market is because of this challenge, there's a huge backlog of mobile projects that are being shelved and delayed to get into the hands of end users. Mobile service vendors, those that have SDKs and APIs, typically overestimate or underestimate the complexity of their service. They throw these things over the wall and tell the developer, hey, it's fairly easy, we've made it simple, it's a single line of code. But the reality is a tremendous amount of work has to be done by the developer, either internal or external, to bring new services into applications and satisfy the demands of the enterprise user. The number of these SDKs and APIs is increasing, and all the work that needs to be done to achieve the outcomes that are needed by the modern digital organization is manual. So as you can imagine, compatibility challenges, complexity challenges, version challenges, upgrade challenges, etc., all plague the modern enterprise in getting the best apps into the hands of users, doing so with the services, security, identity, and mobility needed by the digital workplace. If you ask your IT department, or for that matter, your mobility department, and certainly if you ask your developer, what they'll tell you is that manual implementation, doing this line by line, code line by code line, takes a long time. Typically, these implementations often result in brittle releases that tend to break as updates occur. So whether the OS updates or the SDK updates or the app itself updates, we tend up having things that all of a sudden stop working or cause errors in the application or errors in the deployment, etc. Keep in mind that there's four pieces to the equation here. Not only is there the app, there's the OS, there's the SDK, and of course there's the network that the app has to live in. Most applications today don't come pre-built with knowledge of at least two of these three components, right? The security or mobility system that needs to be connected, i.e. the SDK or API, and the network itself. As these things change and evolve, all kinds of things can go wrong. And more often than not, apps are brought in from the outside. So source code isn't even available to the IT, mobility, or developer inside the organization. So they're kind of left waiting and stalled to get the right apps into the hands of workers. And unfortunately, users don't wait. They don't like to wait. They tend to be very vocal when they can't use the tools and resources necessary to accomplish their job. So what we do, what Appdome has created, is the ability to integrate the services needed for the modern enterprise into applications without anybody writing a line of code. Today, we offer a platform where anybody can come to. It's located at fusion.appdome.com. You can upload an app built in any environment on the planet. Select the service that you want to implement to that application. Click a button called Fuse My App, and within about 30 seconds or so, generate a fully productized application that you can publish anywhere as needed. So whether it's the public App Store, Google Play, or Apple's App Store, or any of the enterprise app stores that are used commonly for internal enterprise distribution, any of the common vendors like BlackBerry AirWatch, Microsoft Intune, etc. The value of this is tremendous. Not only does the developer not have to spend time writing line by line, stitching together implementations, but enterprises and developers can implement multiple services from a single vendor, or for that matter, multiple services from multiple vendors into a single app, all within a span of the same workflow. The other advantage is it decouples the need to access source code so that third-party applications can be augmented and the services can be added to even apps that were not built by the organization and deployed to workers, all with a common set of policies, controls, and security needed by the digital workplace. Let's take a look at the demo. I think that's where the real magic happens, and then we'll come back and talk about the technology a bit. So here we go. So as you can see here, we're at fusion.appdome.com. Anyone can navigate to the site and create an account. Simple username and password is all that's required. Signing into the account is free. So if any of you want to go and try out Appdome and use it in your own test environments, feel free to do so. Let me start with a basic orientation of the service. Over here on the left-hand side is your account, where you see all of the apps that I've uploaded to complete mobile integration projects on my system. A couple things to point out about applications and their compatibility with Appdome. All applications are compatible with Appdome out of the box. There's nothing that needs to be changed or modified in the application. There's no Appdome SDK, no Appdome API, no drop-in library or anything of the sort. There's no framework limitation or protocol limitation in your app. Basically, build an amazing, great app that you intend people to enjoy and use, bring it to Appdome, upload it, and you're off to the races. The way you get an application into your account is by bringing an IPA if it's an iOS app, or an APK if it's an Android app, to the system and dragging and dropping it here or browsing your local file system. It can be a signed or an unsigned application. For that matter, it can be a completely obfuscated application. As you'll see later in my presentation, the technology that we use works at the binary level. So there's no source code injection or anything of that sort going on. And we're able to accomplish all of the additions of services to your applications in a few seconds. Let's take one of the applications that I have in my account. I'm going to use this Android app here from Oracle. It's their business intelligence app, fairly popular one among our customers. Once I've added the application to my system, I go to what's called the Fuse tab. Within the Fuse tab, I have a variety of service options available to me, everything from standalone security to management, identity, analytics, etc. Within the security tab, I have a variety of options. So as you can see here, navigating to any one of these is fairly straightforward. You click on the tab and then expose the services available to you within that tab. To add any particular service to the application, it's as simple as toggling the feature on the Appdome platform. As you can see, I'm turning on a variety of services like data at rest encryption, copy-paste prevention, root detection. I can do things like disabling screenshots. I can turn on and add a PIN code. I can add a variety of features here by simply toggling each feature on and off on the Appdome platform. One of the unique things about us, located under OneShield by Appdome, is a set of app hardening capabilities that gets applied to every application and every integration completed on the Appdome platform. So whether you are adding standalone security or an enterprise mobility service or a single sign-on service or what have you, every implementation on Appdome gets a set of app hardening capabilities added to the application to protect the code of the application itself, as well as the critical data that might be stored in strings and preferences, user default files, etc. So this is for those of you in the EU who are looking at things like GDPR compliance. The One Shield by Appdome gives you the privacy by design feature set that you need to satisfy the requirements under that piece of legislation. Before we click Views My App and I show you the magic of how this is added, I want you to understand that this is perfectly suitable for Android and iOS apps. So as you can see here, we have an Android app here, iOS app here. The same feature set is available under either of those platforms. Same process, you merely go to the tab, open things up. Let's go back to the Oracle BI app so you can see some of the other services that are available, and then we'll click the Views My App button and show you the magic happening. Let's say, for example, you wanted to take the standalone security that was added earlier and you wanted to manage that in an MDM environment using app config. Typically, you would have to code these services to an application, make the application app config compliant, or ask the ISV to do the same for you. In the Appdome world, you simply upload the application and toggle this feature set on in order to make that application app config ready. And for those of you who want to go outside of MDM and look at application level controls, things that are commonly referred to as EMM or MAM, and want to add the full SDK of an enterprise mobility vendor to an application, you can go down here under Enterprise Mobility Management, toggle on this feature set, and select from any of the leading vendors necessary for your environment. I'm showing here BlackBerry, AirWatch, IBM Mass 360, Mobile Iron, and Microsoft Intune. To add these services, you would simply select the relevant service for your environment. Doing so adds the full SDK to that application. So all of the UI, all of the authentication workflows, all of the encryption, all of the tunneling, all of the policy controls, management capabilities that are available via your EMM console or control center can be applied to an application without writing a single line of code, simply by selecting the vendor from the drop-down list. On top of that, Appdome allows a variety of extensions and additional features from Appdome itself to improve, augment, and expand the implementation for your digital workers. I mentioned GDPR earlier, so again, for those of you who are interested in compliance with GDPR and want to apply data minimization principles to an application that go beyond what your EMM provides, Appdome allows you to do that. So here I'm showing turning on things like prohibiting local contacts and local calendar. If the application was built to access personal contacts and calendar, we can disable that feature here on Appdome itself. On top of that, you can add additional services from the vendor, whether or not those services express themselves as an SDK or API or not. So what I'm showing here is this particular vendor has a secure browser, a secure email, and a secure document sharing service, which I am enabling via these toggles here so that the application performs as if it's been natively coded to all of the services that are available from that vendor. I'm also adding an additional SDK on top of that from this vendor, which is kind of an overlay icon and quick access to apps enabled within this vendor's ecosystem. As you can see here, you get the same One Shield implementation that is available elsewhere. To add all of these capabilities, you simply click this button. What the system does is dynamically gather all the choices that were made by the user. We dynamically generate a code base to implement those choices, map that to the original binary, and then seal the application with the anti-tampering, anti-debugging, code obfuscation that I showed earlier. And the result of this in a few seconds is a fully productized application that allows the application to be deployed via this particular vendor's management ecosystem. So this saves a tremendous amount of time on the organization's part and the ISV's part. Imagine we've taken the entire SDK of an EMM vendor. We've added to that several extensions to make that application work in your environment. On top of that, we've added additional SDKs and app hardening to the application to make it compliant with upcoming laws regarding user privacy, etc. And we've completed that in a matter of seconds. The reason I've chosen this app, and one of the other things to keep in mind for the developers on this webinar, is that you can see here that Appdome is bridging the gap between this particular application and the SDK. In this case, the app contains activities that are defined as single task or single instance, and the SDK does not support that class of activities. Appdome bridges the gap. This is true again whether the application is built to support WK WebView or WSS or IPv6 and the SDK doesn't support that. Appdome overcomes these limitations, bridges the gaps between SDKs and apps, and makes sure that your application functions in the environment of your choosing. Once you have completed the fusion, from there, it's fairly straightforward. You can change the display name and app icon of the application. You can prepare the application to work inside of your environment, whether you support private URLs or custom values, custom configuration files like proxy pack files and things of that nature. You can do things like support, private server certificates and authorities, all kinds of things needed by the modern enterprise. Following that, you would simply sign the application as you would normally sign any application using your Apple developer credentials or your Google Play certificates or what have you, and you are off to the races. From this standpoint, we follow the industry standard. The net result of people always ask, if I put an IPA in and I fuse services, is what comes out on the back end, is that an IPA as well? The answer is yes. IPAs that are fused end up as IPAs, APKs that are fused end up as APKs, and they are new apps with all those services added, and you sign, and then from there you download and deploy to the app store of your choosing, whether it's the public app store or the enterprise app stores. And of course, it wouldn't be a platform, it wouldn't be a SaaS platform if we didn't give you dashboard and data so that you know exactly who's done what, when, where, and how, so that you have full auditability and traceability of any integration. And that's Appdome. That's how it works. You take any application built in any environment, upload it to the platform, select your service that you want to add from a variety of services available on the platform, click Fuse My App. 20 to 30 seconds later, you get a fully productized app that then you brand, sign, and go. Let's go back to the presentation. So one of the questions that we often asked is, how is this different from other mechanisms to integrate services into application? Well, the first one is obvious. There's no code or coding required of the user of Appdome in order to achieve an integration. So folks often want to go a bit deeper. And they say, so how are you doing it? Are you unpacking the app? Are you decompiling it and doing source code injection? And the answer is no. We actually have a patent on our method of adding services to applications. I've included the patent number here. If any of you want to go geek out and read how we do it, it is publicly available. But basically, what Appdome does is pure binary to binary mobile integration. So the easiest way to think about this is to think about it as DNA strands. Every application that is built today as a binary presents itself as a series of DNA strands capable of being connected to other systems. And every service, whether it's a multi-factor authentication, management service, a single sign-on service like Okta or Ping, whether it is security or, for that matter, mobile advertising, when expressed as a binary, also presents themselves as a series of connection points, etc. What Appdome does is perform the multi-service mediation layer and glue that brings these things together. And the way we do it is via a multi-service architecture that sits behind the web front end. So when you think about the Appdome platform from a UI perspective, the user uploads an app, selects a service, clicks the button, and it's done. Behind the scenes, what's happening is every single service on the Appdome platform behind the scenes is expressed in a series of what we call microservice adapters. Each one of these things performs a unique function within the service that's being implemented, so that as the user goes around and selects the service and the configuration options needed for their environment, the system records that, and when the user comes around and clicks Views My App down at the lower left, the system gathers all of the adapters needed to implement that service. In some cases, the same adapter is used for different services. So in the upper center there, you see the authentication adapter is both a part of the Okta implementation, the F5 implementation, and that's because both services have an authentication workflow. In a lot of cases, these are shared services that are then added to the bundle. On top of that, Appdome adds its service mediation layer and app hardening, and about 30 seconds later, you get the binary. That's how Appdome works. Binary to binary fusion using a series of multi-service adapters sitting behind a web front end that allows you as the user to implement any service you want in any combination you want on demand. And that obviously adds a variety of unique value propositions to your everyday life. Don't just take our word for it. Several industry analysts and writers have come out and endorsed the Appdome way. If you haven't seen Gartner's market guide for mobile application management, take a look at it. Read what they have to say about Appdome. I love the fact that they highlighted the choice-driven nature of the Appdome platform, basically noting that there's a variety of services that can be added without coding, and in particular, they note any purpose the customer chooses. Last year in the fall, we won the Best of VMworld 2017 from the Tech Target editors. They as well said you can add a variety of services from multiple vendors. CIO Magazine as well awarded us an Enterprise Mobility Award, and they as well talked about the multiple functions that we can add to an application. With Appdome, you get a tremendous amount of freedom, both from the developer perspective as well as the enterprise perspective, to deploy applications with a rich set of services that you choose, that you control, and you tailor to fit your individual use case. So what are the key takeaways? The key takeaways from my perspective as you go out and think about your own mobile and mobility strategies is in order to make apps enterprise ready, you really don't have to code security, mobility, and identity anymore. You can add these services without writing a single line of code, without access to the source code, with nothing more than the IPA or APK at your disposal and some signing credentials and a few mouse clicks. The other thing I think it's important to take away from this is to get new services into an application, you don't have to be locked into a particular vendor or particular implementation, or for that matter, a particular standard or framework. A lot of SDKs, for example, come with certain limitations and say that they can only work with certain frameworks or will only work if you have certain standards available in the application. With Appdome, you don't have to achieve that. Today, we're actually sitting here at the Okta 2018 annual conference in Las Vegas, and we're showing customers how they can add cloud-based identity even without SAML or OpenID inside of an application. So this freedom you have to bring applications to your users without coding specific frameworks, specific standards, protocols, or SDKs or APIs is a tremendous value proposition to you. We've all heard about no-code methodologies. Most of the time we hear about them in the context of building applications. I think that the takeaway I want you to leave with here is no-code isn't just for building applications. It's for integrating services into those applications too, and that affords you a tremendous value in bringing the best apps to your users. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed our time.